Hey, happy Friday. Welcome back to the Midwest. Good to see everybody here. Looks like I'm late today, so I apologize for being a little bit late. I just got done with a client and we went a little bit long. And so as you can see from the title of today's talk, it is about some sad stuff. Okay. So there's absolutely reason for us to mourn the passing of friends. And we're going to talk about that today, but we're also going to have a great time. And we're going to talk about things that are fun to talk about, but also things that are important to talk about today. So I appreciate you being here. I want to thank you guys. If you have questions though about anything that you'd like to ask me, I'm still happy to answer questions. Of course, we still have the super chats that are available for everybody. I will skip to your question whenever you have a super chat, and we'll get on to your topic. But the topic of the day, it's interesting. Let's see, Brandon, you're here. Good afternoon. V Thomas, nice to have you here. Thank you so much, my friend Lee. Hey, good to have you back. It's been a while. So, but yeah, today I want to talk a little bit about a client of mine who actually became a very good friend. And one of the things that I do, so you may be familiar with this, you may not be. I'm a YouTuber, but my primary thing, the whole reason why the YouTube exists is because I got into this crazy, awesome field that is breathwork. Hey, Caesar from Switzerland, nice to have you, brother. But I got into this crazy world of breathwork and human performance and taking control of our emotions and really taking responsibility for our emotions, taking responsibility for our well-being, because that's ultimately where it comes down to, right? It comes down to taking responsibility is that first step. That's the reason, yes, we want to live longer, healthier, happier lives. And what we're doing there is we're saying, I need to do something. I can't just expect that to drop in my lap, right? I can't just rely on my genes to provide me with a long, healthy life or with someone else to step in and say, hey, here's this long, healthy life you can have. And so we are in control of at least our attitudes and taking responsibility. Hey guys, good to see you here. Nice to have you here. Thank you so much, my friend from Cincinnati. Hey, if I'll be out to see you guys, I guess, let's see. I try to get out to Columbus, Ohio, at least once a year. So maybe you can come out and see me sometime out there. But anyway, we're going to talk about it. And this thing that I do, I work with a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. CEOs, professional athletes, amateur athletes, people who are just interested in taking their life and their health a little bit more seriously, people who are, seeking guidance on this issue or that issue. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a breath worker, breathing coach, a lot of other things that I do, but ultimately those are the biggest reasons why people will hire me and pay for my services. And the thing is, these relationships vary. They vary. So there'll be a lot of people that I work with, and it's never like I don't have a friendly relationship, right? I always have a friendly relationship with my clients. And I get to know them to a certain degree, but then there's others that I get to know a little bit better. And then some of them, just over time, I work with a person long enough. And so one of the strange things about doing what I'm doing, and this might be just a little insight as far as what it's like, because there's a lot of people that will do what I do, and it's just workshops, and that's great. I do a lot of workshops, I do a lot of retreats, I do a lot of a lot of events where there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of you guys. Actually, what's really cool is I see these names often, right? I see a lot of these names often. And so it's one of those things where you see a lot of people. And sometimes, for instance, if I do a workshop and it's a public workshop. You buy your ticket, you get a place at the workshop. I'll get to know sometimes people come multiple times. And actually, I've had a lot of people that would maybe I met at a workshop. One guy, Sebastian Zappa, who is he's a microbiologist. He came to one of my workshops, and then he came to another one, and then he came to another one. And before you know it, he's like, "Hey, I think I want to become a Wim Hof method instructor," because he came to a bunch of my Wim Hof method workshops, and so we became friends. I was like, "That sounds awesome," and I gave him some guidance and mentoring. And before you know it, we were working together. And then eventually he moved to Quebec, and he's doing great up there. And it's just, and we keep in contact, and it's amazing where you're going to meet people. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned over the years. I'm at the ripe old age. I'm at the ripe old age of 40. So, the 40, after 40 years, you kind of pick up a few things. Hey, good to see you guys. Guten Tag, Karsten. So, and hey, Ben from Rhode Island. Awesome. And Eric, you're right. Self-care matters so much. Absolutely. But basically, what happens is you meet people throughout life. And the thing is, yeah, Carson, that's about as ich spreche nur wenig Deutsch. Ich habe Hunger. I know that one really well. That's about as good as I can do with German. Okay, but back to my point. In my profession, it's one of these strange professions where you're constantly working with people's emotions. We're constantly talking about becoming more in tune with who we are and our own emotional state, taking responsibility for our emotions and for our state. And so you're constantly working in a space where people are very vulnerable and open, and you get to know people on a very deep level very quickly, because that's why you meet with them, right? That's the whole point. Now I do have sometimes I'll have some clients that are specifically for athletic goals, right? I've got an athletic goal. I want to run a faster mile, or in my case, most of the time it will be, I want to be a better cage fighter, right? Not cage fighter, whether or not MMA, right? I want to do MMA better, or I want to be able to run faster, longer. Or I'm a football player. I want better performance. So I will get some people who have a very specific goal, and maybe we'll talk, we'll be friendly, but typically it's just like, okay, it's I'm the coach, and okay, we're getting you close to that goal. But a lot of clients are more focused on, hey, you know what? I need more confidence in life. Hey, you know what? I'm constantly afraid all the time, or I can't sleep, or I notice that I can't control my temper, and so it's a thing where you get to know a person really well. And so on this past weekend, I got an email. And I basically, I don't want to go into all the details because I want to respect privacy, but I did find out that one of my clients, and who had become a friend, we had become friends. He had been a client for like pretty much a year. And you have a lot of conversation. He'd also come to multiple retreats, workshops, and just a really amazing person. He was also a patron in the Patreon club. So he was part of the community that is grown up. And if you're not in the Patreon club, I'm not just trying to push the Patreon club. It's only $5 a month to be in it. It's this awesome community of people who we get together every month. We do breath work. And actually, this particular guy, he was an amazing musician, and he had over 10,000 hours. He was absolutely just incredibly gifted, very, very smart person. And so actually sometimes he would play music for the Patreon club. So we got to know each other really well. And then suddenly I get this message that he had a sudden brain injury, and he wasn't looking good. It looked like he was on death's door already by the time I got the message. And then a couple days later, he had passed. And it's such a difficult thing. It's hard enough when you know a person is passing, right? It's hard, because if a person catches a disease, or they come down with, they have cancer or something like that, you at least can kind of make sense of things. But this person happened to be born with a part of his brain that it was going to happen no matter what. It was like a ticking time bomb. And younger than me, he was in his 30s, a healthy guy. And really, the thing is, he was starting to bloom so much. Like, he was just absolutely like, just blooming as an individual, becoming so much more passionate and chasing after those passions, and really just becoming the man that he wanted to be, and so happy about it, watching this happen to himself. And what's funny is, we had gotten to the point where a lot of our sessions, because the way I work is I have a lot of different schedules as far as how you want to work with me. Some people will work with me every single week. Other people, it's every other week. Some people, it's every month. So it depends on your goals and what you're doing. So he was a monthly meeting. So, but the thing is, we were in contact all throughout, the month as well. But yeah, it was one of those things where it just doesn't seem fair, right? It's like and I think it's very human of us, and I think we want to make sense of it, right? We want to make sense. We want to say, well, maybe it was something that, and the first thing that comes to mind is, well, maybe he was doing something in his life that made that happen, right? Or maybe I coached him wrong, or maybe, and of course, other loved ones reached out to me with these other things. Well, what if this, or what if that, And in reality, we want it to make sense, right? Because we're human beings, and everything everything should make sense. But sometimes things just don't make sense, right? Sometimes things just don't make sense. And I think that's a very difficult lesson for us all to learn, because we feel like it should. And so, and I think it's very easy to say, well, I'm not going to accept that. I've got to figure out it's got to make sense. I'm going to try to fit. There's a saying that we have in the United States. I don't know. I'm sure there's a version of it in other countries as well. But we talk about fitting a square peg through a round hole, right? A square peg, like a wooden peg, through a round hole, which is impossible, right? It's not good. But we're trying to fit that square peg through the round hole, and it's just not going to happen, right? But we do everything we can to make sure that it fits, right? And so oftentimes when things like this happen, we try to make sense of it. We try to, and what we do is we ignore the fact that there's a real lesson to be learned, and that it's every moment is precious. I remember the last conversation we had was, we didn't talk about breath work at all. We didn't talk about breath work or any of the other health and wellness things that I was coaching him on. He said, listen, this time I was wondering if we could talk about philosophy, and we talked about a lot of things that I'm not necessarily going to go into, because, hey, that was our session, but it was a lot of things that were just like, man, I didn't know that last time I was talking to him was going to be the last time I was talking to him. And so for me, as a friend or as a coach, and, as I guess this combination of the two, I'm like, did I tell him, we always look back, it's like, I'm actually really happy with how our last conversation went. And I'm really happy with how that all went, because it wasn't a meaningless talk. It wasn't a thing that wasn't, it was about life stuff. And I have no regrets about the conversation that I had. And I'm really thankful for that. And I think it's what it's taught me is that I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to find out there's another friend or a loved one, because it will happen again, right? It's going to happen again. It's probably happened to many of you, where you just find out, that person that was a part of your life, I'm sorry, but that person is no longer living, right? So it made me really think, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going to at least do my best to not take any conversation for granted. Now, no, it's not like I'm going to talk to a person as if it's like, what, I've always loved you. Always like that would just get weird, right? Right? I'm not going to do stuff like that, but I am going to try to make sure that I value every moment that I have. And I know this sounds really trite, okay? Especially in the space that I'm in, we always talk about value every moment, live in the present, all of these things. So it sounds very much like me saying the same words over and over again. But I think that instances like this are really instructional. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today. I think it's really instructional for how we live our lives, because it reminds us that you're not really guaranteed a next conversation. I was looking forward to our next conversation. We had all sorts of things we were going to work on. And if I could, he had a new goal. It was, we were going to work for, and I was really excited about that. I'd never coached a person in this particular realm before. And I was like, well, that's really cool. And he and I actually had plans to make an album. We were going to make a breathwork, guided breathwork album and release it on Spotify, because he's just he was an amazing musician. It's hard. Did you hear me? Did you hear that? Because it's hard to believe he's gone. It's one of those things where, because it was so sudden, it's hard to believe that it's real, because there's a part of my brain that's like, no, I'm gonna see that guy again. But I think that's part of learning about this human condition, and the human condition is something that I work with all the time. In one of my professions is English professor, right? So the human condition is something that we see in literature, art, music. It's these things that bind us together. It's these passions, these curiosities, these goals, these habits, these fears that we all share to a great degree, right? We all have what it is to be human, even loneliness. This is the interesting thing about it. Even feeling as if you are the only person who's ever felt this before is a common thing. Think about that. Just think about that. Believing that you're the only one is actually something that unites you to all of the rest of humanity. Believing that you're an island that no one has anything in common with actually is something you have in common with just about every other person. So our sorrows, our angers, our laughter, all of these things unite us, strangely enough, to every other person that's been alive ever. And so as I'm going through this, as I'm trying to process this thing, I really want to kind of convey that what I'm learning from this is, first of all, the way we process grief and the way we process loss and the way we process things happening, it's not always in real time. There's going to be certain delays. Like intellectually, I know he's gone, but I still have yet to actually accept that in certain parts of me. Does that make sense? It's like there's a part of me that, yeah, I know I can't. I'm like, I had to delete him from the Patreon club on August 31st because I didn't want his credit card to be charged. right? So in order to do that, whenever you may not know this, so whenever you have a Patreon club, the only way you can actually do that is to block the person as if, and the only time you would normally block a person is if you don't ever want to hear from them again, which is the opposite of how I was feeling whenever I was blocking him so that his credit card wouldn't be charged. Like that's the exact opposite, right? Because normally you block someone, you don't ever want to hear from them again. And they give you a bunch of lists of reasons why are you blocking this person? Are they being obscene? Are they harassing people? Or, and basically and it says, hey, if you block this person, they can never join your club again. You're not going to, they're not allowed to contact you or communicate with you ever. And it's like, dude, it's the opposite of why I'm doing this, right? I just didn't want his credit card to be charged again. And so I made sure, okay, I'm going to block him. And that was just like, ugh. So, and it's one of those things where this is a friend, it was a client. So we got to know each other, we got to know each other over this. And it also made me think, okay, his parents are still living, right? And as a father, I think about that. I'm like, my expectation is that my son will outlive me, right? My expectation is that, he will live a long, healthy life. And I don't know. And also it got me thinking, who knows, maybe, my friend and client who has passed, he didn't know, hey, there's going to be a certain weekend and that's the weekend that I die, so these are the things that I think it's important to ponder. And it's important to think about. I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking about death, and we a lot of times we might think it's morbid and it's like, no, let's not think about that. I don't want to get depressed. And I'm not saying get depressed about it, but I think it's important to understand that it is a part of life. If you're into Stoic philosophy, remember that you will die. Most of the time people use the Latin because Latin's cool, right? And also because Marcus Aurelius and the roots of Stoicism. But it is, that saying, remember that you'll die. And also, you'll talk to, like Buddhist monks and things like that. And like when they wake up, one of the first things they do is meditate on death. and there's a certain degree of goodness to that. I'm not saying that that we should just always focus on death, but I think it's an important thing to say, okay, I will die someday. It might be today, it might be tomorrow. And how will I live today so that I have no regrets? And so I think there's one end of it. Hey, Detroit 470, we're talking about death here, but stick around. It's going to be okay. But I think part of us, some of us are like, yeah, I'm going to die someday. It might be tomorrow. So I think I'm just going to party and not think about tomorrow because maybe I'll die tomorrow. But then, hey, guess what? You might not die tomorrow, right? Chances are you're probably going to live tomorrow. And so you do need to think about the next day. You do need to make plans for you to be alive. And if you have people who love you and depend on you, you've got to think about those things as well. You can't just be like, woo, right? And a lot of people do. A lot of people live for the day and never think about tomorrow. And there's ramifications to that too. But at the same time, I think the most important part of it is the cherishing of today, right? It's not that we're going to just live today as if there is no tomorrow. It's that we're going to value today because there might not be tomorrow, And so that's where I am. That's what I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I knew I wanted to talk about that today, even before I even knew. So the thing is, I put this YouTube live title and I scheduled it before I knew for sure that he had passed, because it was It was actually no. I think I actually did know. The thing is, he was in a state in the urgent, the ICU. He was in ICU for a while, but there was never really any kind of like, it's like, no, it's not going to go well. It was never like, well, hey, he might pull out. It's like, no, it's just a matter of time. So, but his organs are being donated, and so somebody's going to get that big heart of his. So I'm really happy that that he will live on in many other ways. But it's one of those things where during these times, hey, Rohit Nair from London, nice to have you here, man. Thanks so much for your kind words. But basically, it's one of those things where as we go through life, this is part of life, and it's something that I've had about a week now to process. I know that it's that there will be, like, for instance, my parents are still living, and I know that I have a limited amount of time, and I think things like this, they remind me that, hey, Jesse, you might be getting busy. You might be, you might think you have some priorities. Maybe you want to play guitar all day or whatever. But you need to really think about the people that you love, because there will be a time when they're not there, or, there's going to be a time whenever, if things go like they generally go, we'll outlive my parents, right? That is generally that's the way of things, is that we outlive our parents. So I know that the amount of time that I have with my parents, I probably have fewer days where my parents are alive now than ever, right? I mean, that just all likelihood, I have fewer days. Every day is a day one less day that I'll have my parents. So it's important to think about that. And I don't think it's wrong to say this and to say, well, I really better cherish this time. So whenever mom calls, and actually I have to admit, just a minute ago, while I was on the phone, while I was talking to you guys, my mother was calling. So maybe her ears are burning. That's another American saying. I don't know if you guys have that everywhere. So I got to call her back, especially after talking about this. I got to call her back because exactly, because you have to cherish the time we're given. Now, having said that, there's a lot of things we can do to allow for us to have a longer amount of time here, a longer amount of time before we pass. And that's why that's the subject of this channel, right? Is not only, getting out there to feel amazing, but also, hey, lengthening our lifespan, improving our health span, because, I don't want to just be alive and hating life. I want to be alive and alive, right? I want to be loving life, right? So there's a lot of things we can do, but eventually, right, we have to face the facts that we are mortal people, and that these sort of things are part of life. So it's part of it. It's something that I've been kind of going through, and it's part of one of our tribe, right? It's one of us. It was one of the people that was taking responsibility for his own actions, his own emotions, his own state, and doing a great job of it. I mean, this guy was doing a fantastic job, and it wasn't his fault. It just happened to be his time. And so it's one of those things where what we're going to be doing is we just have to be thankful and be alive when we're here, right? And it's so easy not to be alive when we're here. I think about how many hours of my life I spent playing video games. I think about how many hours of my life I spent doing things that have absolutely no meaning at all. And it makes me think, okay, this moment will only happen once. Am I doing something that's worth doing? Right? And sometimes I think doing nothing is doing something. Sometimes I think that just wasting time is not wasting time, right? I believe I forget if it was I think it was, might have been, I don't think it was John Locke, or might have been Thomas Jefferson, but they made some kind of a saying about sometimes, my time wasted is not wasted time. But ultimately, I think it's I think it's a thing that it's important to remember that we only have so much time, and to use it in a way that we will be proud of whenever we're near the end. And, I think of my friend, and I think he, if he looks back, especially at the time when I knew him, I think he has a lot to be proud of. And I'm, like I said, I'm really happy that our last conversation was the conversation that it was. It wasn't a meaningless conversation. It was something that was deep and meaningful and impactful. So anyway, I just wanted to cover that. I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, just because it is something that's been on my heart. It's been something that I'm still kind of carrying with me. And it's something that it is it's an important thing to talk about. And I think oftentimes, especially in this space, in the health and wellness space, in the, in the space where we talk about our emotions, oftentimes people are just like, no, man, just think about the happy thoughts. Don't think about sad thoughts. Just think about happy thoughts only. And in reality is there's sad times in life. I mean, they do happen. We don't have to suffer from them so bad if we acknowledge them, and we say, we don't make them into this thing that is okay, this wrong, because we can choose to suffer more than we have to. And so, acknowledging these things, acknowledging pain, acknowledging that there is suffering in life, acknowledging what it is to mourn. And that I think it's so important. Mourning is so important, and it's so I think it's so overlooked. People will say, "Hey, be strong," and that's good advice. But part of being strong is being strong enough to lean into the pain and to say, "I'm going to acknowledge this pain. I'm going to acknowledge this sorrow enough to actually do some mourning." And I also think, though, sometimes a person thinks mourning has to be you sobbing and crying. It doesn't. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that's how it comes out. But other times it's just, I just need some time by myself. Or maybe and for me, I've been doing a few extra breathwork sessions. Just time whenever there's maybe in the middle of the day, I'll get into a funk and I'll just be like, you know what? I gotta pause. I gotta make a quick pause. I have to get into my space. I have to clear out the junk and just recalibrate. And then sometimes it's something as simple as that. It's not like the bad thing goes away, or it's not like the, whatever you're suffering from. It's not like that. It doesn't bring a person back, but what it will do is it at least helps me reset and refocus and move forward in a better light. So it's something that, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there are people in this audience right now who have suffered either, you've suffered loss, the death of parents, kids, loved ones, friends, and things like that. And if you haven't, you will. Right. And another thing is, I think if you've never had a friend die on you, so this isn't my first friend that's died. But if you've never had that, then I'm happy for you. But it's part of the thing where it was still so, no matter how much pain you feel at a loss, it's so worth it to have had that friendship. If I had never made friends with this client, if we had stayed at a very transactional level, right? If we were just client and coach and it hadn't turned into a friendship, I would still be sad at his loss, and I would still be, it would still affect me, because anytime I know someone who's had something like that happen, but I was so glad we made friends, even though it hurts more to let him go. Does that make sense? It's one of those things where I think we can say, well, I won't hurt. It's kind of like, sometimes we're afraid to get into a relationship. Maybe it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or whatever. I don't want to get into a relationship because I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt, right? And I think that prevents us from having so many amazing, awesome experiences. Understanding in advance that pain is probably going to be part of every good thing, I think, and making peace with that, I think is so essential for going through life and saying, there's going to be good times and bad times. Like, I'm married. There's good times and bad times, right? There's happiness and there's like, right? And one of us will die first. And, we know that going into it. And there's going to be one of us will be a widow or a widower, and we know it going into it. And, but I would rather it be this way than say, well, hey, guess what? I never had to have the loss of a friend or a loved one because I never loved anybody or, or made friends with anybody. It's so much better to just not to say, I'm accepting that life has pain in it. And I think, I think that's a little bit of, for instance, if you're into cold training or heat training or some of these more extreme sports, or even if you're just into fitness in a real sense of the word, right? Really trying to stay fit and well, that there is pain in that, right? Like for instance, every time I go to the gym and I lift weights or I do row machine. I love doing row machine because I get to feel like a Viking. I know that for my Viking friends, for my Nordic people here, you might be like, wow, that's really pathetic. It's as close as I can get, guys. I'm in the Midwest. We don't have Viking ships here. We have a river, but I'm not going rowing. I don't have the ability to go row. But there's always pain in that, right? There's absolutely, if you're doing it right, you're going to feel the burn. Sometimes people call it the burn, or there's discomfort in challenging your body, but it's so worth it, right? And if you're in an ice bath, there's going to be some discomfort, or sometimes there's even pain if it's cold enough. But yeah, you're absolutely yeah, Eric. Or Eric, is that Eric? There's no galley on the plains. Exactly right. I mean, it's a bunch of cornfields and forests, and we have a river. We have a really nice river, but yeah, I think get to do a whole lot of rowing here in the Midwest. We have a lot of hiking, and a lot of gardening. We garden really well. A lot of organic foods here. A lot of really healthy eats. And I think if you're a fan of the channel, I don't remember if I still have that video up. I put up a video about, it was Wim Hof method, and some people were asking if they could hold their breath longer than 10 to 15 seconds in the recovery breath. And I said, well, you can, but at that point, you're not doing the Wim Hof method protocol anymore. Now you're doing kind of your own thing. And people got all sorts of mad at me. And I was like, maybe, I don't know if I took it down, but in that video, I showed everybody my mother's green beans, and my parents have this giant, like they call it a garden, but it's basically like a miniature farm. So yeah. And Eric, we don't really have a lot of roads as far as I know of around where I live, but some of the bigger colleges still have rowing teams. But anyway, guys, exactly. Jim just says it very poignant here. And I'm sorry if I missed a lot of your comments. I'll try to take a look at some of this stuff here in a minute if I get time. But yeah, you're right. We often grow the most through pain. And that's something, actually one of the very first Jesse Coomer quotes that I was like, this isn't what you said is your own. But what I'm saying, one time I was in, when I was teaching in a composition class, composition and rhetoric. Most of what I teach people how to use research and how to make things clear, right? How to use language, specifically the English language, to make things clear, right? That's what language is there for, to clearly say something. And so And this is a difficult process. Learning is a difficult process, right? All learning is difficult. And so, but I said that growth is always uncomfortable. It's always uncomfortable. And one of the kids in the front row wrote it down, and I was like, oh, whoa. I was so happy about that. I was like, yeah, you did it, Coomer. You did it. You said something that someone felt like it was worth writing down. But you're absolutely right, Jim. Oh man, Eric, the class. Here's the thing. Now, Eric, are you my German friend? Um, let's see. But here's the thing. I think German is, and it actually has. There's a lot of Germanic roots in English. We have a lot in common between the two languages, specifically the syntax. It's actually very interesting how similar German is to English. Obviously, the vocabulary is very, very different. But actually, the reason why I started saying "go be kind," remember to be kind at the end of my videos is because of the Germanic root of that word. Oh, there you are. Yes, you are. Okay. So, but yeah, because kindness, just for those of you guys who missed that episode, kind, the word kind comes from the Germanic root word of kind. Like for instance, in English, we have the word kindergarten, but in German, I think kinder, I'm saying it with an American accent, but kinder, I believe is children, right? And so German and English, 999. I get it now. I like that, Lucas. 9, right? So yeah, we share those words, but they mean totally different things. Yeah, kinder is child, right? So anyway, but kind, I believe I was, according to what I read, kind, there's kin. Like in English, we have a word kin, which is family, right? So and that's something we share in common with it may not be specifically German, but the Germanic roots of our language of English, kin. And so kinder is children, and then I forget there's a few different variations from that root word, but we get the word kind because of the word kin, and the English word kin means family. So if you treat someone with kindness, it means you're treating them as if they're family. And I love that. I just love that because we're all one big family. That's the thing. That's the thing. Oftentimes we love to forget kith and kin. Exactly. There it is. There it is. Exactly. So we often forget though that we're all one big family, as in, yeah, and then kindred. Exactly. There you go. So there's so many ways. There's so many ways we use that root of kin, right? That kindness is to treat someone as if they're family, and we oftentimes forget we're all one big family, whether or not and in a family, yes, there's going to be disputes, right? There's going to be that cousin that you have that kind of gets on your nerves, right? But ultimately, we're all one big family, right? And so, and so, and in the United States, we have a thing called Thanksgiving, and it's a specifically American thing. Maybe a lot of countries have. Well, we all kind of get together for the holidays, right? Think of a holiday, right? Or some kind of a special day. We get together with our family, and there might be parts of our family that maybe they think a little differently politically or have a little different view on this or that. But ultimately, we get together and we honor the fact that we're all one family, because that's what's important, right? We want to make sure we're honoring the fact, guys, yeah, we might be different. We might have different views and thoughts and opinions and stances, but ultimately we're one big family, right? So let's get together. And then sometimes we just have to force it. We have to say, hey, yeah, we're getting together this year and we're going to have a dinner or whatever you guys do with your family. And what happens, what's so funny is maybe Uncle Joe or whatever will say something that irks you, but then you kind of have to understand, it's like, there's a part of me in Uncle Joe, right? Maybe Uncle Joe is irritating me, but there's a saying that I love, and that is, there's something about you that I don't like about me, right? So oftentimes, whenever we point something out in other people that we don't like, it's oftentimes some part of ourself that maybe it's not exactly that, but it's in a way, it has something to do with something that maybe we haven't really reconciled about ourselves. And so one of the things I love about the word kindness is ultimately it's like if you treat a person with kindness, you're treating a person as if they're in your family. You're treating them as family. And that I love, because also I feel as though that means you're being more genuine. You're not just like, how I think every culture has a certain degree of politeness. And I know it's different in different cultures. Like for my Russian friends, it's so weird whenever I'm with Russian people, because and Eastern Europeans, right? Because I'm such a big smiley guy. If anybody's here from Eastern Europe, right? I'm a big smiley guy, right? I'm a big smiley guy, and I'm right. And that is just different. There's a different culture there, especially with my Russian friends. It's like, no, I mean, they don't do that quite as much. And we all behave a little bit differently. Yeah. But we're all, one human family. It's so, and we're separated by language and by regions and things like that. But I am hoping as we go forward, and this tribe is a part of that, this movement of, and we can, people relegate this to just health and wellness, but it's not just health and wellness. If you are taking your health and wellness seriously, and another thing is, a lot of the people that I know, and a lot of the people here today, are not just taking health and wellness seriously. They're at least thinking, right? They're thinking about life. We're thinking about what it all means. We're trying to think about our relationship with others and taking it seriously, taking life seriously. And the more I've done that, the more I've enjoyed it. And the more I've seen myself in others, the more yes, you can judge bad behavior. Yes, you can look at another person and say, man, that was a dick move, right? Wow, dude, you were a total jerk there. But also, the more I see that there's part of me that does that. I can't just sit here and claim that I'm this holier than thou, figure, because even the bad behavior I see other people do, there's a part of me there, and I know I have to acknowledge that. And so I think that's why it's so important to especially using the word kind, and to be kind, to remember that even the asshole at the store, or or the guy who cut you off in traffic, that's your family. And there's a part of me in that person as well. We all come from the same human family tree. Anyway, guys, this has been a really fun Friday live. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm wanting to hopefully give a little bit more. I don't. Please don't get me wrong. I want to talk about eating and everything, but the past few live sessions have really been great for me, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on them. And I'm glad. These seem to be resonating. So feel free to reach out with questions, whether it's about Wim Hof method, breath work, cold training, heat training, nutrition, exercise, things like that. But hey, also, it's okay to reach out with philosophical questions, or hey, I need a little advice about this or a little advice about that. That's what we're here for. We're family. We got to help each other out, right? And I'm not saying I know all the answers, but this at least is a forum where we can get together and talk about it. So, hey guys, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for all these comments. I do read these comments, whether I read them online or like while I'm live, or a lot of times I'll go back and I'll take a look. So I really appreciate it. Lucas, the show must go on, right? Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you have a great weekend. It looks like it's going to be a really nice weekend here in the Midwest. If you guys are in the areas that are suffering from fires or floods here in the United States, we got both. My heart goes out to you, and I wish you well. Stay safe, and help your friends out. Use some kindness, because we need more kindness now than ever. Guys, have a great weekend. Thanks so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and don't forget to go out there and be kind. Bye-bye.